Welcome back to Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what's going on. And there is a lot going on, and I'm going to prove that tonight because we have some amazing guests tonight that have done some amazing things. And before I get into that, though, I want to ask that you hit that subscribe button, hit that little like button, because it really does help bring this message further and present it to the rest of the world that needs to hear this message. And if you haven't seen Starfall, Starfall is the main documentary on this channel, at least the first one, that will be pinnacle to you understanding what's going on in this channel tonight. So please go watch Starfall movie. Starfallmovie.com is the website. You will see things that you didn't even realize was possible is happening right now, right before your eyes, and you need to be a part of that knowledge so you can spread it and bring it to others. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest tonight. How are you doing, Olaf and Jane, your wife? Jane, did I get that right? Yes. Okay, wonderful. I was worried there for a second. Thank you so much for being on here. You guys have an amazing testimony to talk about because all I know, I know very little about it, and so I'm actually going to be a participant in the story tonight as I'm listening because I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. You contacted me a while back and you said, "Hey, can you do a 20-minute segment? We're gonna present Starfall." And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do that." I scratched my head and thought, "What am I gonna talk about?" But as I understand it, and I don't want to take away from your story at all, so I want you to tell me how you started this process and why you did it.
Sure. Basically, we live in the northern part of Idaho, the Panhandle. And if you've ever are acquainted with this area geographically, it's a beautiful area, lots of mountains, lots of places to develop retreats, and as a result, it's a magnet for preppers.
Preppers.
And so, preppers come from all over the country, and they want to be in North Idaho and Montana. Those are the two main places.
So tell me, I understand what that is, but I actually had some questions. We do a little pre-show before we start this with I call it my focus group, my investors, my people that are passionate about this in our Discord group, and we talked about it, and some of them were saying, "What is a prepper? Can you tell me more about what a prepper is?" So can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Basically, a prepper is someone who has the mentality that they're going to prepare for the end of the world. So they're stockpiling on guns, on food, and finding a secluded place that
they can be really independent.
Yeah, and they can defend themselves against the last events of the world that is, in their perception, things that take place. And so there's a lot of interesting concepts and ideas out there as far as...
and there's a lot of conservative Christian views because they may not be stockpiling guns and stuff, but they want independent. They want to prepare for the trouble that's coming.
Oh,
yeah. So there's a variety of different people with different religious backgrounds, and many of them are non-religious as well. But they're preppers. They want to get out of the cities because they recognize, particularly in the last 2-3 years, where things have become rather violent in the cities with the different events that have taken place. And so people are moving out of those places. They're coming to North Idaho, to Montana, driving the real estate prices way up. But we have a lot of these preppers that are just pulling, all around us. And so I was just discussing with my wife, how can we reach these people where they're at? And so we came up with a seminar that focuses specifically on topics that a prepper would be interested in knowing more about. And we came up with
and something that's not your typical, usual, same old, same old.
Exactly. In the top, we cover the first topic was when it all collapses, society, nature, government, enemy. Basically, what do you do when all of that collapses?
Yeah.
And of course, different people have different ideas. And well, that was one of the first topic. The second topic was the event of nuclear war, and this was particularly pertinent as we're seeing the events that are taking place in Europe, Ukraine, and the tensions that are building up between Russia and the Union and the United States. All of this. So this was the second topic.
Yeah, and so this topic was specifically, what do you do if there's a nuclear war? Yeah. How do you survive?
Fascinating.
Yeah, if a nuclear bomb hits a major city near you, can you survive it?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, those were things that we had be presented, and we had a fellow who was very well versed in the subject matter and did a great job on that particular topic. And then the next topic that we addressed was staying healthy amid a collapsing medical system.
Wow.
And that was reflecting on the fact that over the past, we did see a collapsing system that didn't take measures seriously on helping people get well, but waited for them to get into the hospital on incubators before they did anything. That whole system. And so how do you stay healthy when the medical system is letting you down? And so we addressed that and had a great time with that subject. And then the next subject after that was when the electricity goes off and when the power grid, we're all so dependent upon electricity and the power grid. Well, what happens when it suddenly isn't there? How do you survive? What do you do?
Yeah.
So we had a gentleman who came from an Amish background who that's how he grew, and that's how he lived for many, many years without electricity. So he brought some really incredible insights on how to survive when the electricity goes off.
Yeah, little things you wouldn't think of.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last subject was inspired by a conversation with one of your co-hosts, Aaron Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And we met him at a potluck after church one day, and he just began to share with us about this incredible YouTube channel called Strange Normal and what's it all about. And he began to tell us all these things, and it was like, wow, I had never heard these things. And so we thought we want Aaron to come on and do a presentation on that. But when we approached him about that, he said, I'm in the midst of a lot of things are happening. I can't do that. But he said, I know the fellow who can do it for you. And he and
we had watched Starfall after he told us about it, and we just thought, this is great information. This is something people need to hear.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so that's what resulted in us contacting you to see if that would be workable for you to introduce Starfall, and as well as us having the audience watch the movie as well, the documentary. So this was what we put together, and we approached one church.
Well, before you get into that, I know a little bit about this story already, but I want to share just some things. So that I found, and that this is fascinating to me, that have been presented to me just recently. I'm reading through a book called Evangelism. It's kind of a neat book right now, and in my library, and it's this is some quotes from it. I thought this was pertinent to what you guys were doing. New methods must be introduced. God's people must awake to the necessities of the time in which they are living. God has men whom he will call into his service, who will not carry forward the work in a lifeless way in which it has been carried forward in the past. Get this one. Let us not forget different methods are to be employed to save different ones. Or how about this one? Let every worker in the master's vineyard, God's vineyard, right, study and plan, devise methods to reach the people where they are. We must do something out of the common course of things. We must arrest the attention. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. And I think that's fantastic that you guys are thinking out of the box and saying, okay, these are where these people are over here. Let's bring them in. And you know, I don't have any problem with prepping. I think that we are going to come on a big problem here in the future. And I think that having a little garden, you know, living a little bit away from the cities is probably a good idea. So go on. I'm interested to know how, if you had any difficulties presenting this uncommon message that I think is so important.
Yeah, and definitely this is uncommon. This was an uncommon approach. It was out of the box. And when we approached the first church that we thought would be an excellent venue, and to have the support of that church, they said, well, let us review it and we'll get back to you. And they came back to us and they said, well, we like all of the presentations except two. And I said, well, what two that you're uncomfortable with? And well, if you would do away with the one on the nuclear war and do away with the one on aliens, UFOs, and the U.S. government, then absolutely you can have a seminar at our church.
Oh.
And it was like, oh, that was so disappointing. But for us, it was like either we do the whole thing or we do the no. And so we just took a step back and we were praying about it and we shared it with another church just casually.
Yeah, one of the church members we were visiting
one
with.
of the elders, yeah, of another church. And he jumped on and said, what? Why don't you do it at our church, the church he attends? And so make a long story short, we ended up able to schedule the event at that church.
And they just ran with it. They were so enthusiastic.
Amazing church family over there.
Yeah.
So.
And we had a phenomenal turnout. We had a good number of community members as well as church members from all this area. It was more than we expected.
And
I'm sorry.
And this was the time when you had that big snowstorm. Is that correct?
Yes, the same day actually.
Yeah.
And we were expecting that we weren't very many people because of it, and the church filled up.
We had a record turnout. In fact, if we had any more,
it would have been too
we
much.
would have had to turn people away. We didn't have enough room for everybody.
Wow.
We had a luncheon meal, and everything was packed. It was just amazing. And this was on a snowy day, as you mentioned. It was just snowing, and people were showing up.
Yeah.
Incredible. So go on. I interrupted you. I wanted to ask about the weather because I knew that was a big factor in whether or not people are going to show up or not. So what were you going to say?
So we went through each of these 5 topics, and particularly which was of interest was the very 2 topics that the other church wanted to cancel, which was incredible. People were so intrigued regarding nuclear war, and they were also intrigued with the aliens, UFOs, and encounters, and also when electricity goes off. Also had questions during the day, but the very subject matters that the other church thought would not be appropriate were the very things that people were hungering to hear and to discuss and know more about. So.
And after the program, people were stopping us and asking. I had a number of people ask me, where can I see this again? My wife wasn't here. I need her to see this. And I had other people say, I've never heard these things before. but it makes sense.
This was particularly about the
About
documentary.
Yeah, the documentary Starfall.
Oh,
Yeah.
praise God. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so you had... Go ahead.
I was just going for people who were church members as well as individual non-church people.
Yeah.
So, which was amazing.
What an amazing way to reach out. I think that's fantastic. So do you have experience in doing seminars like this already? Have you put together some things in the past, or how does someone, this is my main question, how does someone get started like this, and what advice do you have to them?
Yeah. He's put together seminars and camp meetings and things. So yeah, he has some experience.
We have a little bit of experience, but really all it takes is somebody who's willing to step out and do something. Interestingly, we received a phone call just about a week and a half ago from a young lady who's never put on any seminar, and she's putting on this seminar because God has put it on her heart to do that. It's a seminar that is more specifically to reaching people who are backslidden, but she's going totally out of her comfort zone to do something like that. And I guess in answer to your question, how does a person go about it? Well, the first step is, do you have a willing heart to do it? And if you do have a willing heart, then God is more than able to equip you and bring to you persons and people that will assist you in happen.
Yeah.
But that's the first key. Has God put that on your heart? Then run with it and do something big for Him.
Because He will open doors when other doors close.
Yeah, He'll step in and He'll do all the work. I mean, we have to step forward, and He does the rest. But we have to make that initial step. It's almost a step of faith as we step forward. And I see that throughout the entire Bible. I mean, even back to Abraham, right? He went forth not knowing where he was going, but he stepped forth in faith, and God did the rest. And throughout the entire Bible, you have this concept of, it's not by works that we're doing this, because God does all the work. But the thing that we have to do is show that we are choosing to go forward, almost as if we're showing the rest of the universe, the courts of heaven, that this one's for this plan right here. And that's what you guys did. That's fantastic, and I really appreciate that. Do you have any plans for the future on doing this, or something like this, or another event like this? I think this was a very creative way to do things.
Yeah, out of the seminar event, it created such exciting enthusiasm for the church that we had worked with. We're ready to let's plan. And so definitely that is something that is being considered for the future. And the neat thing about it is other people are now becoming excited. The church that was reluctant has come back to us and inquired, explore this more. So there's now an openness, potentially an openness there to possibly having the seminar at that church as well.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Praise God. So was the other church, and I don't want you to name names, I'm just curious, is the other church a bigger church, or was it a big church? It's a bigger church. Okay. So that was probably the reason why you chose that one in the beginning, but it worked out anyway in the end. Very, very good. Yeah, I that's something that we struggle with on this channel whenever we're talking, is how to get the message out and how to reach the people that already know the Bible, and they can push the message further out to more people. And we've had some big leaps and bounds in that and been presented with some huge opportunities, but we almost need a grassroots movement to step forward with this, because the message is not just simply about aliens or demons presenting themselves as such, but it's a much bigger plan of spiritualism and how it's here to deceive, using religion at the end of time to make a much bigger problem. So I think it's fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah. Very, very good. Do you have any I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we didn't touch on. Any other comments or things you heard from people that after the show that you would like to discuss? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, it just was a very positive experience, and
we've directed a lot of people to Strange Normal as well, both in the U.S. and in Canada.
Yes.
So yeah.
So Canada too. So were they watching remotely or?
Well, I'm a Canadian, so I have a lot of friends and family out there. So we just kind of spread the word.
Very good. Yeah, I'm my father's Canadian, so that's very good. On the East Coast, so that's I don't know hardly anything about it, but my grandmother was a dual citizenship, so we would visit Maine, way up there in the East, quite a bit. But yeah, very good.
I have to say, when we first met Aaron and we were talking about this, and he was telling us about Strange Normal, I already had some understanding of, basically what the UFO movement was, only because kind of easy to figure out when you hear the accounts of people who claim they've been abducted, and it's a horror and a terror. Yeah. And so I realized it's demonic, cows being turned inside out and things like that. And so when Aaron started telling us about this, what I didn't know is I didn't know that the US government paid any attention to this, let alone had involved. You hear the conspiracy stuff and all that thing, and you just kind of blow it off. But once he started explaining to us, and of course, the state of the dead is huge.
Yeah.
Then we checked out the channel, and of course, since then, we've been recommending to everyone we come in contact with that this is an important topic for the time we're in.
Absolutely. That's what really amazed me too, is that not only, and what really started this whole thing, because I had been thinking about looking into this, I don't know, about 10 years ago, and I thought, I really need to make a documentary on this to try to figure out what's going on. But it wasn't until the Nimitz Encounter came out. The Nimitz Encounter, for those that are listening, is this thing that happened off the coast of, I think, Mexico, near California. And these things presented themselves to pilots that were in the area, and they took off looking for these things. And they have radar and all kinds of stuff. I'm sure if you watch any news, you see this, if you don't watch Starfall. But it was fascinating, because not only is the government looking at this, but they've been looking at it for a very long time, and actually sending out and denying the fact that they're doing this. And I don't like to get into because you can easily fall into the trap of the typical ufologist that says, "Oh, the government is lying to you," and this, that, and the other thing. And it's not my thing to try to place blame on something, because it seems to me that we're all just people, and we're not trying to deceive people, especially our own government. But the government is truly just trying to figure out what it is, and if it can't figure out what it is, it wants to keep its job. So it's not going to say, we weren't able to do something, because that would look bad on paperwork. And so I think there's a much deeper explanation for what's happening here, and it has to do with spiritualism. And we're going to see a lot more of it coming up. So, but the important thing is that we're getting this message out, and you guys are doing a fantastic job of it. And I hope more people are doing something like you. If someone wanted to do that, and I realize I kind of asked this question again, but I'm kind of asking it a different way. What would be the first steps that you think they should start?
You did.
Okay.
First thing he did is he said, okay, I want to do a seminar. I want to reach the preppers. So first thing we looked at is, what are they interested in? And their main interest is protecting themselves. We want to be safe if the power goes down. We want to be out of the cities. The city is going to close us in so much easier. So he looked at things that they were interested in. Then we looked at what resources we had and the people we knew. And he tried to pick people that were kind of like experts in their topic based on interactions we've had and what we know of them. So he came up with his topics. Then he contacted the people to ask them, hey, would you be interested in doing something like this with us? And most people said yes, absolutely, with the exception Aaron wasn't available, but he gave us other ideas. So from that step, Olaf put together a plan. He had his speakers chosen. They had their topics that they were comfortable with and willing to present. And then the next step was to go to the church and present it to the church and see if the church was willing to, participate in this and open the church up to this. And the one church that got excited and wanted to go with it, then the next step is make it. Olaf printed out a flyer that the church went, and they went door to door handing out flyers, and they had posters put up and advertised. Built a website actually, so on the flyer it had a web click into and you register. Now, one thing we did find out with registering, we had everybody that attended pretty much was registered. It was good for us because we knew what to expect beforehand, although with the snow it was kind of sketchy. But one problem we ran into is close to the time, like I think the night before the seminar, I had given a flyer to someone and they looked at it and they said, oh, we can't come because we have to register. And, it's tomorrow. So I would caution people against doing the absolute registration unless you call it pre-reg or something like that, because you don't want to people actually for people after the seminar. Oh, I'd love to come, but we didn't register.
Oh,
so we had more people. So, but like Olaf said, we couldn't have more people. We were full. So anyway, get the message out and then put our order of service, I guess you would call it, together, announcements. We planned a luncheon in between. So we had presentations. Yeah. And then we had a lunch that we provided. It was a light lunch, soup and bread. And then after the lunch, we continued with 2 more presentations. And the lunch is a really good idea because it allows people to mingle and discuss with each other and with our presenters. And then the very last thing we had was a question and answer. And that's where the audience could ask questions. We had them questions down and they did to the MC. And we read the question to our panelists and they would respond. And the reason we did it by written down is so that you prevent having someone make a speech or, just take up more time than we had. And so it was very orderly. It went very well. We had excellent questions and it closed it off very, very nicely. Presenters did handouts, some of them for the presentations they did. And the people were very eager to get the handouts because, information they can take home with them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's it.
So your presenters, so they were also preppers? I mean, sorry, you broke up a little bit there because I don't know. I guess there's a bad connection a little bit. So tell me more about the presenters and how did you find them?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Well, our first presenter, he's actually, he presented the subject matter, When It All Collapses, Society, Nature, Government, When It All Collapses. So how did I find him? Well, he was someone that was a good friend and that I was very well acquainted with, and he had interest in this subject matter. In fact, he has spoken on this subject. He's a public speaker, and so I thought, he would be ideal, and he did an incredible job. He was, one great presentation that took place. So how did I find him? Well, truly, you pray about these things. You ask God to impress your heart, and God will bring to your heart names and persons, and you prayerfully make this a cooperation between you and God in the process.
Don't be afraid to ask lay people.
Yes.
Because all of our people were highly qualified because they studied their stuff. They knew it. Their interest was there, but they weren't necessarily public speakers. Yeah.
I mean, we only had one person who was a public speaker.
Yeah.
The next person who did the subject matter on nuclear war, he was well versed in it, and only because
he was at the Berlin Wall when it fell down.
Yes.
I mean, he has incredible,
amazing life stories.
Yeah.
So just conversations with him just caused me to both of us.
We both
said, hey,
he's the one for this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So of course, the one on. I'm sorry.
No. I was just go for it. Go for it. I have a question afterward, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay, and the one on health, that is a subject matter that I have deep interest in, and so I did that presentation. And then, of course, the one on the electricity,
the Amish
gentleman, he had done a presentation at an event that we had been at, and just real likable.
We were impressed, and so we contacted him, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to."
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Aaron, running into Aaron. And as he shared what was happening in his life, it was pretty obvious that, hey, he's the guy. And of course, when he mentioned he couldn't do it, and
he passed us on to you.
and that was excellent too. You did an awesome job with your presentation as well, and then the movie.
Praise God. Awesome. Praise God.
Yeah.
There has been many questions in the chat. I'm seeing, looking through the live chat here. They want to know, where are these presentations? How can they have access to these too? I think there's a lot of interest in this, not just in Idaho. Idaho? I gotta make sure I say that right. Is it Idaho?
Yeah, it's the presentations were done at the Diamond Lake Seventh-day Adventist Church, and so if you do a search on YouTube, Diamond Adventist Church, you should be able to find those presentations. They're associated with that website.
And it was called, what was the name of the seminar? Preparing for a Time of Trouble.
Yes, Preparing for a Time of Trouble, a Call to Action was the title of the seminar.
Okay, yeah, I see it here. It's Diamond Lake SDA Church is it looks like the thing. I'm going to go to the playlists and see if I can see. Oh, it's right here. You have hit playlist, Preparing for a Time of Trouble. It's the only playlist. Very easy to find. So that's fantastic. And these are something I'm going to listen
to. Yeah, the video recording that was taken, that, it's a learning experience, and some of the videos are washed out. The slideshows didn't come through. But the content is generally there, and so the next round, doing this, we're going to try to improve on that aspect, so that the video is much better. So it's actually YouTube ready.
I think you guys did an awesome job. This is fantastic. Just the fact that you guys are out there doing it, and inspires me, inspires others, and I think it's really good. I see 5 videos here. When It All Collapses, questions and answers 2, part 2. Stay healthy amid collapsing medical system. What do you do when the power grid goes out? And Time for Trouble, nuclear war. Fantastic. Oh, that's great. And I think these are all relevant, and especially for people that are curious about this topic. It's good information, and they're all about an hour long too. That's good. Very, very good. Well, do you, I want to take this time, we have people in the chat to ask you questions, and I'm going to kind of field those to see if anybody has any questions, and I'll give everyone time to kind of formulate that, as I call it in radio. I used to do a Bible Answers live show every Sunday with a popular evangelist, and he would call it push the line. We got to push the line to get people to call, and so I'm going to push it out there to anybody that wants to ask questions. you're welcome to ask it in the chat. We're not going to open phones tonight. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But I do want to reach out, and if we see any in the next 5 minutes here, we will ask our guests here if they can go ahead and answer anything you have for them. This is always a fun time because you never know what's going to come in. but at the same time, I want to make sure that everybody has their questions answered in any form possible. I see that one question that we just answered was, where can we find those presentations? So that's good. And let's see here. Can you put a link in the comments? Yeah, I sure can. I'm going to do that in the live chat, and also we'll do that for the comments afterwards so people can find them too. And let me just double check. Okay. They say Brad is interviewing a couple who shared Starfall with some Doomsday Preppers. You've heard it. I find it interesting because nowadays we have to delineate between what is a prepper and what is preparedness, because you've had that Hollywood TV show Doomsday Preppers, right? And so a lot of people think that you got a hidden vault in your house that you stay in called a panic room, and you got to have your gas mask, and you got to have all this stuff that we've seen Hollywood exaggerate everything. But a little bit of preparedness isn't a bad thing, and it's definitely a good thing. I have a question.
It's being wise.
Yeah.
Being fanatic.
Don't rely on the system so much. I find it interesting that just in the last, in our lifetime, obviously, but the last 200 years, we've had these new things called grocery stores. Where you don't go out and you don't pick out of your own garden or out of the neighbor's garden. You don't go to the farmer's market. You go to a giant store that has mounds and mounds of unbelievable fruit from Mexico, everywhere. Just everywhere. And which is fantastic for vitamins and minerals and all this other stuff that we need. But relying on that, I think is kind of dangerous. Our economy lives on a thread, and I think eventually, I'm not the kind that becomes too concerned too fast, because I want to make sure that everyone doesn't become too fanatical. But I think there is going to be a time someday in Bible prophecy, if we are fortunate, I'm going to say fortunate enough to live through it, because fortunate enough to be in it, I guess I should say, because that would be an incredible time to see God's mercies and glory. But we definitely have an opportunity here to witness. I see the conservative racer says, "Shalom, Brad. I have a question." All right. Well, we're waiting for your question. And I just presented the link. So I'll leave the questions open for another 2 minutes here. If anybody has a question, go ahead and submit it into the chat, and we'll ask our special guest tonight. Do you have any final comments that you want to talk about? Anything that is heavy on your heart that you think is a good thing to mention before we leave, I guess? We do have questions after this, but if you can think of anything.
Okay. No, the Starfall movie was very impactful upon me. It just, most of us, we kind of have scales on our eyes, and we're somewhat asleep to what really is happening in the present realities that we live in. And Starfall is a tool that helps open people's eyes to the realities. And the fact, bringing out, as the documentary just brought out, how The U.S. government has embraced this as something to be investigated, and the conflict that is happening between Christians and those who are not believers and so forth. The documentary was very well put together. It was a very eye-opening experience for me to watch that movie. Very impactful, and I know that when it was shown at the meeting that we had, it did the same for many people as well. This message that Strange Normal is putting forth is a critical message. It's an important message. It's emphasizing that there's a battle going on, and it's way beyond flesh and blood, but principalities, powers of darkness against powers of good are happening all around us, and we're just seeing a glimpse of that reality through these paranormal things that are happening. So.
Praise God. And we've had some amazing clips that I'm going to include in a second one coming out soon, particularly if you've been watching this channel. A prominent Christian MUFON director named Joe Jordan has come out and said that not only him, but many other researchers have noticed that these things are deeply connected with trying to push the idea that their dead relatives are coming back. And even though I emphasized that in Starfall, the first one, I had no evidence. I'm sure this is connected, and I needed to talk about this. And it was almost, maybe it was a God thing, because right after that, I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom. Here's the evidence right here. And there is so much going on in that area regarding this deception about the dead. I mean, I personally believe I've read a few books like The Great Controversy, great book, and it delineates a lot of different things that are going to happen through looking through the Bible prophecy. And one of those things is spiritualism. They call it spiritualism because it was written back in the 1800s when they didn't talk about aliens. This isn't, I mean, I'd have to look it up. I don't want to say anything prematurely, but I don't know if there was an actual term UFO even back then yet, or at least it wasn't as common. And so what they wrote about was absolutely spiritualism. And so I think it's fascinating. I need to go back and read through the second half of that now and kind of look at every time spiritualism is mentioned. What does that actually mean? Anyway, that's my little side note there. But I want to look at these questions real quick. If you guys don't have any comments, I don't want to cut you off.
I just want to comment on prepping.
Yeah.
If you look back, let's say 150 years ago, the majority of people were farmers. And if you look at what God designed in the Bible with the Israelites, when they went into the promised land, they were all given a piece of land and they could never sell it. Because if you have a piece of land, you typically have shelter and you typically have a means of food. But what society has done over the last 150 years is they've given us all these conveniences. But what the conveniences have done is they have made us dependent.
Yes.
And like you were saying with the grocery store, there are so many people that do not know how to plant a garden. There are so many people that if the grocery store runs out of food, like it did in COVID, we walked into large stores and they were empty. People, what to do? They go into panic. If the goes out, they freeze. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to keep themselves warm. So when it comes to prepping, I'm not into the extreme stuff like stockpiling and guns and that sort of thing, but it is wise to look back at what maybe our grandparents did, how they lived, and glean this wisdom. This is where the Amish fellow that did this presentation was so valuable. He has wisdom because he's lived this life that we've lost.
Yeah.
These new generations coming up. It's died with our old folks, and nobody bothered to, listen to them, talk to them, find they lived and what they did. These methods are really simple and they give you independence.
Wow. That's powerfully said. I know the one thing that we did, my wife and I, when we started rebuilding out here in Tennessee, is we said we have to have a wood stove. It doesn't get too cold out here, but at the same time, it's an easy thing to do. Put in a wood stove, and then you have wood, and that's it. I mean, you have heat.
Heat, and you can cook.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can sterilize water if you need to.
Exactly. I mean, it solves so many problems, and it's we depend on a lot of stuff, and that stuff could go away. I mean, we're looking at a lot of things right now, and I'm not trying to. I'm talking to the audience. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I mean, think about it. We're close. I'm trying to word myself carefully here. There is talks of nuclear war. There is, I mean, more than a lot has been said about that in the news. There is talks about a completely different financial system right now that's happening. CBDC and what's the other one? FedNow. And those are some keywords that are being thrown around a lot in the news. And this is not alternative news. This is the mainstream media, and you wonder if that's being talked about so openly, about a programmable currency that they can program right out of your wallet. You got to wonder, where are we in history? And so I think it's a good thing to really dig into and understand and be a little prepared, just in case. A famous evangelist who I won't name once told me, he said, I keep my car stocked with water. and I thought that was fascinating. So I thought, you're always near your car, so why not have some water in the trunk, So anyway, but we have a couple questions I want to ask real quick here. From the Conservative Racer. Brad, my first time visiting you live. Being late, I struggled to understand what you guys were talking about. But I did I understand you are SDA? Yeah, we don't really go into that very much, but yeah, I am Seventh-day Adventist. My guests tonight, I don't know. We are having them on because we are talking about that, about Starfall and stuff. So I don't know. So yeah. So they presented at a Seventh-day Adventist church. Thank you so much for that. And let's see. Lisa says, did they say they were from Wendell, Idaho? Are you guys from Wendell, Idaho?
No. We're out of Old Town, Idaho,
which is a little tiny place up in the Panhandle, right close to the border with Washington.
Very good.
About 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Very good. Very, very good. Meredith Poole. What would be the best way to survive without power if the country's power grid went down? What would be the best way to survive without power? So I imagine you're probably going into the presentations from your Amish friend, but what would be a short answer for that?
Well, you mentioned it. The wood stove is a must. And, well, you have food, shelter, and water. Mm-hmm. So a garden and your water source.
Yeah, the best way to survive a power outage is to prepare today.
Yes.
You don't want to wait till the power goes out, then try to figure out how to survive, and you're in an apartment, let's say in a crowded city, and everything is out. You're not in a good position in that situation. But today, start preparing today for those events that potentially can come down the pipe, which, according to Bible prophecy, we find that things are not going to improve as the world goes along. Mm-hmm. It's going to get more and more difficult.
Right.
And just in case anyone's interested, if you look up Northwest Homesteader, this lady, she does presentations on how to grow food in cold climates through the winter. And you can actually grow vegetables without a heated greenhouse.
Really?
And that Yeah, and that brings up also, this whole idea of becoming self-sustaining. Even if you are in a city, living in an apartment, uh, hey, it's springtime. Plant some tomato seeds.
Yeah,
Start
in a pot.
in a plant, yeah, in a pot. Put it in your kitchen window or whatever. Start going in that direction of becoming self-sustaining. Uh, we are so dependent upon the grocery store. If the grocery store was no longer available, what would we do? Start going in that direction, becoming self-sustaining, and planting this spring.
Little things
Little
make
things.
a big
Yeah.
difference. In Canada, where I'm from, in my hometown, we had avalanches one year, and I'm from a little valley. Well, the highways got closed, and the trucks couldn't get in for 3 days. And in 3 days, the grocery stores were empty.
Oh,
So
my.
it was a shock. We had no idea this could happen.
Yeah.
There's I have friends that work at Walmart, one of the biggest, a super Walmart that has a grocery store in it. They said you would be amazed. We go stock that thing in the morning, and it's completely. We have to restock it throughout the entire day, every single aisle, because it's just completely emptied. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize there was such a big turnover in some of these big stores, and everything could be gone in hours. I mean, think about, you're in a small town, 3 days, okay. Hours, things could be gone in big cities because it's so concentrated. And yeah, anyway, not trying to scare anybody, but I mean, prepare, have a little bit of stuff ahead of time, even if it's just a few cans of beans. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. So thank you, Meredith Poole. That's a very good question. Let's see, Madeline, aren't we told that things that are hoarded, this is a good question, will be taken away by force, and that it's to the mountains that the people will flee for safety? This is a question that comes up quite a bit. Do you know the answer to this? I can speak a little bit about it. Go ahead.
Okay, well, certainly, this is my opinion, obviously, but hoarding is a fruit of selfishness, and so we got to change our mental mindset to start with. From my perspective, when we prepare for the future, prepare with the thought of helping your neighbor. We're here to not just live for ourselves, but we're probably here to be able to other people. And so when we're considering preparing for the future, consider, what can I do not only to provide for my own family, but also for those who might be in a desperate situation around me.
And I'd like to add too, there is a difference between being wise and hoarding. And again, we have to look at our past and look at how people lived in the past. In the past, people grew their own food and then they preserved it. And they might have large quantities preserved, but they preserved what they needed until the next harvest. That's not hoarding. Now, if you're going to stockpile cases and things that you couldn't use in a year's time.
Are you talking like cases of toilet paper?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then people find out you have something like that, and we're told they will take it from you by force. Again, it comes down to selfishness. I'm going to protect myself, and I'm just going to stock everything. But being wise is doing what our ancestors did in the past. They didn't have grocery stores that just run to. Mm-hmm. So they grew their food, they harvested it, they preserved it for the next harvest.
So it's basically they preserved and canned foods for a year, basically, till the next harvest.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
that's often not considered hoarding.
Yeah. I've often heard it said that since we're told this, the ones who told us this are actually the ones who used to can quite a bit and owned hundreds of fruit trees. And so there's a difference, like you said, between hoarding and being prepared, because back then it was a way of life. That's what I heard you say. It was.
Yes.
So.
And Another thought that the gentleman who was the Amish fella presented, he was pointing out that it was a way of life for them to produce like 7 to 8 thousand jars of canned
Wow.
foods. Yeah, we think maybe 200 jars of applesauce. That's a lot. That's almost hoarding.
But they also
that is true. Yeah, 9, 10, 11 children and so forth.
Oh yeah.
But you know, uh, preparing for a year's supply until the next harvest, I think is a reasonable thing to do. But always keeping in mind that when you're preparing, you're thinking of other people as well, not just
Yes.
yourself. We don't want to be self-centered people living isolated in the last days
Yes.
of this Earth's history. We want to be part of those champions that are helping those who are in need. That's my perspective.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that when we help others, God will provide. We're given many, many, many examples in Scripture of where
Yeah.
someone had the last of things. Who was it? I know the lady with the jar of oil.
The oil.
Yes. Yeah. And it, I always find that fascinating when the prophet comes in and says, feed me first, and then God will provide for you. Boy, that's faith. You gotta have faith to do that. And she did, and she had overflowing amount. If she had more jars, I'm sure more of them would have been filled. And I think we're going to see that again. I mean, everything that. How did Moses know that the sea, that God would keep his promise and part the sea when he told him, go ahead and part the sea? He had seen it before. He had read it before. It had happened before in the Bible. Things have happened in the Bible for our faith alone. And so when we read these things, we know this can happen. Well, I have absolute faith that God's going to provide. And when we step forward in faith, providing that first step to the courts of heaven and saying, I am a part of the people of God, God will do that for us. And that's why when we have people come to our houses, I've often heard people say, well, what are you going to do when they come and they try to take it from you? I'm going to invite them in. And I'm going to say, sit at my table.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love those who hate you.
Yeah.
Prepare a banqueting table to those who despise you.
Mhm.
Those who want to take from you. Turn the other cheek type of thing. These are radical concepts that Jesus taught, so foreign to the way the world looks at things, where the world is constantly mine, mine, mine. I'm going to defend it. Let me stockpile on guns because I'm not going to allow anybody to take my goods or whatever. And Jesus comes along with the radical concept of, no, you help people. They come to you and they need help. You help them. What a radical concept.
Amazing. I have another question, or actually, Juliana has another question here. Do you have any recommendations or the best and easiest produce to grow in pots since we don't have a yard? My husband and I are planning to have a patio garden this year. How neat.
Awesome.
Nice.
Is there easy? Do you know of any easy produce to grow?
Strawberries grow well in pots. Actually, they grow well in bags. You poke little holes in them and you plant your strawberries in all the little holes and hang them. Let's see, tomatoes grow very well in pots, very easy. And I'm sure you can grow lettuce in pots. Lettuce, I discovered just this last year that you can cut the top of your lettuce, and as long as you don't pull the whole thing out, it just keeps growing. And you just keep harvesting from it.
From one plant, you
From
can just
one
keep
plant,
harvesting
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can grow 4 heads of lettuce in
Yeah.
one pot, and it can serve you the whole summer.
Well, I don't know if 4 heads would serve more than one person
Okay.
for the whole summer, but
Gotcha.
it goes a ways.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's a lot of things. I think in pots, the harder thing to grow would be roots, things that like carrots and things that grow under the ground.
Potatoes.
But pretty much everything that grows up, herbs, your basil and oregano and all those would grow wonderfully in pots. And those not only help to make your food taste good, but they have healing properties too.
We can grow bell pepper, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah. Cucumber,
Yes.
possibly.
Yes.
Cucumber would require a little bit more space, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it will grow out of its pot, and it'll grow around. You can grow squash. You can put trellises. I've had squash that grew up on trellises. So yeah.
I thought of
Just
another
be
question.
creative.
Yeah. I thought of another question that I had. What produce, what plants grow abundantly? I'm sure different places grow different abundance because of different climates and stuff. But I can think of when we were in Northern California, which is almost the same temperament we have it here in Tennessee. Eggplant, man, we couldn't stop that thing growing. There was so much. I mean, we could practically live off that thing. And so I wonder if there's other plants too that would be so prolific that we could just have enough, and it'd be like one plant produces so much. Like for instance, I think the opposite side of the spectrum is I love snap peas. I plant those things. I eat them right in the pod. I mean, they're so sweet, and but they take up so much room, and you only get a few. So, or I mean, as much room as you make. So, can you think of any that were very prolific for you?
Our snap peas were very prolific.
Oh, were they?
I grew them on kind of a trellis, and they grew up, and we had lots and lots. They just didn't stop. And squash always is another one that really grows. We had volunteer squash. I put compost around the bottom of my fruit trees, and there just so happened to be some squash seeds in there, and they came up. And I thought, oh, I'll just let them grow. That squash spread through the whole orchard. And we bountiful harvest. So yeah, you just have to try. Different things grow better in different areas, but it's amazing. You have one tomato, and inside that tomato has a million seeds, and those seeds will each grow a bountiful harvest of tomatoes. God has just done so much. So it's such amazing things with the plants.
What about this question? This is actually, I'm going to form it into a question. Can you grow, what is the smallest area you can grow enough food in? And enough food could be different for every person, for every size family. But I've seen some people convert their yards in their postage stamp properties. I call them post, where you're like 4 feet from the other house. But they convert their front yard. They must not have HOA, because I don't know how they do this, but they make the whole thing a garden, and I'm just amazed they're able to feed their entire family off the front yard, and they have these stacks and stacks and stacks of things that they mount them stuff on. I mean, it's a talent in itself, I think. But have you seen this? Do you? What would you recommend? Have you heard anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, high density gardening is basically what you're referring to. Is in a small amount of space, you're growing a lot of vegetables, a lot of produce. It is something that we looked into. Both Jane and I, we read several books. There's a fella out of Canada, I believe it's Quebec, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he's a market gardener, and he makes a 6-figure income. Healthy income every year off of, I think, an acre and a half.
Yeah, something like
just
that.
An acre of,
and it's his business.
High density gardening, and he grows basically for, I don't know,
I think it's
50 or 60.
Jardin de Glier.
I think that's
the garden.
So but he concentrates high density gardening where he's utilizing every space. And for the home gardener, we can do the same thing and grow on a small lot, our little backyard that we have. If we are in the city, plant, instead of green grass, plant it with vegetables and produce, and you will be able to sustain your family, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
Even a small garden typically puts forth more than you can even use for a lot of people.
Yeah. Once the tomatoes start coming, you're not going to be able to.
Oh,
The
we
tomatoes
we
just
brought
keep-
boxes and boxes and boxes of tomatoes. Yeah, we had a lot of tomatoes, 3 different kinds, but a whole row, and we just didn't know what to do with them. I mean, there was just so many. And then the end of the season, you have a bunch of green tomatoes. So I don't. We um wa- we're totally off topic here, but I think I think there's a lot of good questions coming in. I think we're going to take 1 or 2 more about gardening, and then we'll conclude because we're already at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So
Oh,
I'm going to let me see. How do you prevent bugs in your garden? How do you prevent the unwanted things like aphids and bugs and all this other stuff? I've heard people say in the chat here, marigolds and basil. Do you have any other ideas?
neem oil.
Yeah, neem oil. And depending where you live, I know the southern states have a real challenge with, whereas we who live in the northern area, we don't have that much of an issue with bugs. But we still have to deal with
Yeah.
bugs. And we use neem oil. And
And there's also kale and clay is
oh,
another
yes.
it coats for fruit trees in particular. It will coat your fruit, and it's not poisonous, but it changes the look of the fruit, and the bugs don't recognize it as easily, and it changes the taste. And if you cover it before they get to it, it will deter them from getting it.
What?
But also organic, yeah.
No. What was it called again?
It's kale and clay. It's called Saran is the brand name.
Say
And
it.
you
Say it
mix it
again.
with water.
There's some disconnect. I forget you keep chopping out. So say it again.
Okay, brand name is Surround, and it's kale and clay.
Got it. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
How do you
And
guys?
organic? Okay,
No. Go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say, if you talk to organic farmers and orchardists, they use other methods. They use a pheromone, and I can't remember the name of the product, but you can purchase it. It puts out a pheromone, and the bugs are attracted to it, but the smell is so strong, it basically kills their senses, and they can't mate, and
Huh.
it reduces the bug population. That's for fruit trees.
Fruit trees. Okay. Yeah. We had trouble with our peaches when we were in California. What do you guys think about? And I don't know. I don't know anything. I have very little about gardening, but what do you feel about the copper on trees? Is that bad or good?
I haven't looked into that.
Yeah, that's
We haven't used
Yeah.
it because
Okay.
we're trying to do organic, but I really haven't looked into that.
Okay. So yeah, it's not organic. So we were trying everything. We had to prevent blight from coming on our trees, and copper is what fixed it for us. It was a copper solution. It was kind of blue, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't make it organic, but boy, that was hard. So very good. We're losing subscribers because we're totally off our topic of what the truth is and what is coming out here. But I do appreciate you guys coming on the show and talking about this, because it is a fascinating topic, and I think you're onto something here. Please let me know if you guys are going to do something again. I would love to, even if it's not on the same topic. I think it's fascinating the different avenues you're taking to spread the gospel and bring people into the church. I think that's fascinating.
thank you.
Let's have a little prayer before we go. I want to conclude with prayer because I started, most people don't know this, but I start in a pre-show on the Discord, and we have a little prayer to make sure that everything goes well, because I've learned that if I don't do that, things don't go well. There are things out here that don't want us to present this message. And so I'm going to thank God for everything that did go well tonight. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you for the ability to have our friends here in Idaho on the show tonight and to talk more about these important topics. Guide and direct us and help us to learn your ways better and prepare us for a time when we won't have the conveniences that we normally have. We love you, God, and we look forward to the day that we stand before you, your throne. Amen. Thank you. Stick around. I'm going to talk to you just after the show, and we might talk a little bit, but not too long, as I go into the outro here. Thank you all. Take care. I love you. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching this segment. Subscribe to our channel and join us every Thursday night for more daily strange topics and more. Find us on Discord by accessing patreon.com/strangenormal. See you there.